I don't know what your name is. Scots. Give us
Yeah,
your age, race, and pronouns.
yeah. You can just call me Skates. I'm white. I am 23, and he, him.
All right, talk to us.
Yeah, I just have two questions. So, what would an intervention from the continent of Africa look like to improve the lives of African Americans in America? And when you say the oppressor, are you referring to, obviously, you're talking about white folk, but are you referring to every white person, maybe that you believe perpetrates a certain system, or are you talking about certain white people in power?
I can't answer those questions for you. Um, I can't answer those questions for you. The second one. All right, maybe the second one. Can you repeat the second one?
Yeah, yeah. So, like, when you're saying the oppressor, are you talking about white people in general, or certain white people who have maybe political power or in higher positions?
What white people are not in a higher position than black people?
Me? I mean, I can't walk down the street and be like, "Hey, you're black. I'll tell you what to do,"
Why can't you?
because it's a free country. You can't just tell somebody to do something and they do it. I mean,
So
unless you're paying them, I guess. But I mean,
if
not just
you
on a random level.
if you and a black man were both the same age, same background, walked in to get a job, which one do you think would get paid more, or which one do you think would get the job?
Who do you think would get paid more or get the job? Well, I mean, it depends on who's hired. Like, I mean, honestly, if I mean, I don't think that should just be like, oh, he's white, he should be hired. I would assume. Well, are you saying we have the exact same qualifications, like the exact same workplace, everything?
Yep.
Um, well, I guess it's who's hiring. I think if it was a white dude, I'd probably be hired. If it was a black dude, the black dude would probably be hired.
What What do you think is more likely, that the black dude would be the boss hiring people, or it'd be a white guy?
If you're just saying out of probability, I would most likely probably get hired.
All right. So, do you think that gives you power over the black person in this scenario? Do you think that's something that would eventually, if it were happening, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of times a day across the United States, would give people in your group power, at least economically, over black people? I
Yeah,
mean, you
yeah.
can't
I mean,
walk up to a random person and say what to do, but
yeah,
you kind of can if you're getting paid better than them.
yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. What was your question? I'm sorry. It slipped my mind. What did you
Well,
just say?
just saying, do you think that the wealth gap, the economic disparagement, and marginalization of black people gives white people a power dynamic over black people?
Well, definitely economically, people with more money are advantaged over like people who have less money, and generally, black people live in like worse economic situations than white people. But I mean, there is a lot of factors at play. Like obviously, Jim Crow, redlining, slavery, like all of that ties into basically what black people face today. But it's not like the end all be all, right?
What do you mean?
So do you think the reason that black people aren't able to assimilate maybe to like the success of white culture is due to racism, just racism itself?
Racism itself is a broad term. Racism covers 10 areas of people activity. The ability to assimilate, do you think that's what black people should trying to achieve? Like, do you think we should try to assimilate?
Um,
Which one makes you which one makes you more comfortable?
which one makes
Black
me more
people,
comfortable?
yeah, black people assimilating, or um, liberating, revolutionizing.
Um, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I don't really, I don't really care that much as long as people are happy. Like however people want to find success, whatever.
Which one would make the white community more comfortable in your experience with the white community?
I would probably say the black people assimilating into the white culture.
Okay. So do you think that should be a plan for black people?
So I'm just trying to think like what is white culture and what is black culture because like I know black people that grew up in white neighborhoods and they wouldn't really say they're a part of black culture as per se. You know what I mean? And what exactly is the difference? Like what is white culture and what is black culture really? Do you know what I mean? Like I'm trying to like
If if I raised a I don't know, if I raised my cat to think it was a dog, it probably would think it's a dog, you know? If I raised my actually there are dogs that think they're humans, you know, because they never spend time around dogs. They only spend time around humans and they only eat
yeah,
human food. And so
yeah,
they really do start to think of themselves as like humans.
yeah.
Doesn't mean it's not a dog.
I'm trying to think of how to answer this.
So
So do you think these cultures are a social construct, or do you think race is kind of deeper than that, that we're inherently different as black or white people?
do you think white people have a culture?
I think just white is just kind of a little too broad to just say, oh, this is white culture, because there's a lot of different kinds of white
What
people,
are some of the tenets of a culture?
I would say, let me think. I would say music, food, um, architecture, things like that. Like
Okay.
art, different kinds of art.
Okay.
So, and yeah, I think just being white in general, I think that's a little too broad because I mean, when white people came here, they did their best to assimilate into the broad white culture. So, white people actually did kind of screw themselves over when they came to America. They're like, all right, well, we're actually just going to forego all of our traditions and we're just going to try to blend in when we get here, right? So I think we kind of screwed ourselves over in that regard. You know what I mean? So I think it's kind of a little too broad to be like, oh, this is white culture, you know? And like
So
my family wasn't even here for super long. Like my grandfather was born in Austria and like I don't even know any, you know?
was your grandfather racist?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And so would you say you're a racist?
No.
What's the difference between you and your grandfather?
Well, I don't look at people any as any lesser on the basis of the color of their skin.
When your grandfather came to America, do you think he thought he might be treated like black people did during his day? Do you
Maybe
think
not, because he's white. You know what I mean?
so he knew
I don't think like white
so he knew
Americans. Yeah.
so he knew when he came to America, the land of opportunity, that he would be given opportunity because he know he wouldn't end up on a plantation. Correct?
Well, I mean, this was like early 1900s, so nobody was really going to end up on a plantation. But I know
There
what you
were
mean. Yeah.
plantations in the early 1900s, believe it or not. And that's the only thing I'm going to teach you today. If you want to look it up, you can look it up. But my grandfather was born in 1901, and he was born on a former plantation. So anyway, when your grandfather came here, he knew he wouldn't be treated like a black person, correct?
Right.
But he knew black people built this country.
They played a part in it.
Like the building part.
Yeah, I mean, black people like played a big part in building America. Absolutely.
Like, yeah, okay. I'll leave it there. All right. So, when you walk out your house every day, do you feel like you're going to get treated like a black person?
No.
Sound like your grandfather.
How are you making that connection?
Your grandfather was able to come to America and thrive because he knew he wasn't going to be treated like a black person. He knew he wouldn't be oppressed. You go through life knowing that you won't be oppressed, knowing that oppression still exists, but you are protected from it and thus able to benefit, just like your grandfather.
I don't participate in it though. I treat everyone equally. So like it.
But your
Like I
grandfather
don't
knew-
understand how I'm
Your
perpetrating it. But you know what I
knew-
mean?
Your grandfather knew slaves were here, right?
I would assume, yeah.
So he knew slaves were here, and he knew black oppression was going on. Yet, he could benefit from that because he knew when he came here, he wouldn't become a slave. And so you enjoy the privileges of those that were once enslaved because your grandfather knew he wouldn't be a slave when he got here. And you get to walk around and know comfortably every day when you wake up and every night when you go to bed that you will be able to benefit from the oppression of black people in this country that built this country before your grandfather even got here. Black people that have been in this country for 400 years. You know that you are able to obtain wealth before them. You're able to get jobs before them because your grandfather knew when he got here, just as you know, that y'all will not be treated as black people. Which means you're a beneficiary.
So in 2024, what should I be doing? What do you think I should be doing if I'm just existing as perpetrating the system, you know?
So that's a good question. When white people wanted to save the ozone layer and they wanted to save the dolphins, do you think they had discussions with trees and dolphins?
No, I don't think their level of English is very good.
Correct.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah. So when the problem comes from your community, you got to figure it out with them.
I mean, dude, I know like I'm going to sound cookie cutter. I'm sure a bunch of people say this, but like I genuinely do love everyone. Like I actually don't look down on anyone for anything they can't control. Like I grew up in a very multicultural environment in school. So like
You have the
I don't know.
privilege of not loving anyone.
Of not loving anyone?
I'm sorry. You have the privilege of loving everyone. I'm sorry. I meant the opposite. You have the
Right,
privilege of loving everyone. Do you think black people have that privilege?
Why not? Well, I mean, I'm basing it off of personal experiences. I'm sure there's a black person out there that could be like, well, I've never had a lot of bad experiences with a lot of people, so it's like they love everyone too.
A black person. Mm-hmm. So you're sure an imaginary black person exists that hasn't had a lot of bad experiences because they haven't been around a lot of people.
So what you're saying is basically a black person is inherently wrong if they don't harbor ill feelings towards white people.
Whoa, buddy.
That's kind of what I got from that.
Why did you get that from it?
That's how it sounded. Because you're like, whoa, you have the privilege of loving everyone, right? I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
You ever watch Freddy Krueger?
No, I didn't.
You ever watch Jason?
I might have seen like clips from it, but I don't know like the storyline or whatever.
He goes to Camp Crystal Lake, and he unalives all these teenagers at the camp. And it's like one of those summer camps that people used to send their children on so they could take a vacation, just mom and dad. But anyway,
Right.
So he goes to the summer camp, and he unalives like all the students and the and the teachers and everybody. And so if you saw, man, unalive your mother, your father, your cousins, your friends, would it be smart for you to trust this person?
Absolutely not.
But what if the person's always been nice to you and always treated you
I'm
nice?
sorry.
You
Are you
know,
talking
like
about
the individual that unalived all those people
Okay.
brings you cake every day and gives you coffee, and you really think you could be a good pal with this person, but you've seen what they're capable of. You've seen what they're capable of, like firsthand.
This doesn't equate to what we're talking about, because this is like an actual event. Like, you see the person doing it. Where you're talking about is like 200 years ago. Right? They're not the same thing.
Did you not see this the Sonia Massey video?
Yeah, I saw that. I saw the video.
Okay, so you saw it. So you do see it. Okay.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah. So you see what they're capable of. Like I said, are you smarter for putting your defenses down around this type of person?
I would say no.
Okay.
But I know white people that would make the argument like, well, black people have a higher likelihood of committing crime, so every time I see a black person, I'm going to clutch my purse, or I'm going to take a different elevator. That's kind of the same rationality, right? It's basically just discrimination based on the race of the person.
I believe all white people
Right?
deserve crime to happen to them, at least once. You know why? You know why? And I believe it should be at the hands of a black person. You know why?
It actually did happen to me. Yeah.
Because why do black people, in your opinion, why do black people do crime more?
Lower economic states.
And why do lower economic states exist in the black community?
Well, a lot of it's trickled down from like redlining, Jim Crow, etc. But there,
Okay. And the reason for redlining, Jim Crow, and etc. is
racism, right?
okay. So
Yes.
racism perpetuated by which group?
Caucasians.
Okay. So when you live in a world with racism that you're not doing anything to stop, crime should happen to you. Yes, that is the curse. That is the curse. That's the curse of the black pearl.
It actually did happen to me, so you could take me off the list, yeah. But like I said, I don't feel any different about black people. It's like, okay, that was just kind of like whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I don't harbor any ill will.
Okay.
I don't know, just personally, you know, I don't think that's. But in terms of, you know, African Americans being at a lower economic status, yes, like racism is a big factor, basically to why this is happening, but it's not the only factor, right? So the biggest.
Did black people
looking for
have high poverty rates and do crime before? All right, which one? When did the criminality of black people begin? Was it before they were brought to America as slaves, or were they also doing this in Africa?
I don't know anything about Africa, so.
How many prisons do you think existed in Africa?
I don't know about prisons in Africa. So you're saying
Maybe
that,
something
that
you
black
should look it
people,
up.
So that a black person never committed a crime until they came to America.
Now we're being
I'm just saying. Like,
no
that's
Europeans.
crazy.
Your people think in dichotomies. So that's a thing. I know y'all cannot resist. Like, it's all or nothing, red or blue, Republican, Democrat. I hate it. I love it. Like that's
I'm
how
an
you-
independent. I'm an independent.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, you're. Yeah. But anyway, there were no prisons. And they traded and gave away gold so much that it crashed the world gold economy because there was so much gold in Africa. Their servants would look and smell so good because how they treated their servants was a reflection of their master, that when Europeans came to Africa, they thought the servants were kings. They had so much gold on them. They lived in an agricultural society because they had summer year round and didn't have to survive a harsh winter and run out of food and have to fight each other for it and see the best man wins in the hunt. So, criminality, however, it seems like the laws are created by a certain group of people, and it's used and justified to lock up another group of people that were brought here legally in chains. Because the law at that time said it was legal to own people as property. This is what we use to measure morality in the West. Laws passed down by kidnappers. It's kind of interesting.
Well, yeah, I don't know if I have a rebuttal for that. There's nothing I really disagree with. Right? I'm not going to say that slavery was somehow good and people pulling up to Africa and taking the gold is somehow good. Like, I think they're bad things. I think they're horrible things. But I feel like you're kind of just using this to point to be like, well, white people did this, therefore I have an excuse to not trust. And like I don't
an excuse
I actually
to not
don't
trust,
really I
as
don't
if
really
I have a
blame
choice.
you. I don't really blame you on a personal basis if you have experiences that make you distrust people. But I'm just saying, like, logically, just to make any vast generalization.
What about
like,
an experience
all
that
white
makes
people
me
are doing
distrust the system?
I mean,
What about an experience that makes me distrust the law? What about an experience that makes me distrust white people's ability to follow their own laws? What about a lifetime of experiences? What about 400 years of stories passed down from elders of experiences and experiences and experiences? The only ones that seem to be more willing to be open are the young ones who have no experience yet. But by the time they reach 50, man, they've got experiences and they've got stories, each one.
Yeah, so on a personal level, I'm not going to say someone's a bad person for having negative experiences with a certain group, right? Like, I mean, it's just how the brain works. It's how, like, the neural pathways are formed. If you have multiple negative experiences with the same or a similar sensory input, your brain's going to form a trigger. And every time you come around that trigger, your brain's going to throw you into a fight or flight response, right? Because it's literally just how your brain learns. So I'm not saying that you're a bad person because you feel this certain way, but at the same time, I think it's not beneficial to look at society like as broadly as that, and especially to be preaching that message to other people.
So, in a world where Sonia Massey is unalived in her kitchen, you're telling me that black people should lower their defenses? Like now is the time to do that? Right now. Right now, you acknowledge you understand racism. You acknowledge that you understand you benefit from it. And during racism and oppression, black people are now supposed to turn to those that benefit from it and lower their guard.
I know.
And that's your solution. That's it. Because deep down,
that's how
you know.
crazy y'all are. That's the thing. That's just think about that one. That's crazy as a mother scooter. You know, do you hate Russia? Or you dislike Russia?
Do I hate Russia?
Yeah, do you have a problem with Russia? You know, Russian bots, Russian.
I mean, I don't like communism.
Okay, well, What has it done to you
What has communism
lately?
done to me?
Yeah, what has Russia done to the United States? And
What
we're
have they
all
done?
supposed to not like them and hate Russians and the
Um,
commies and the Russian bots.
yeah, I mean, I just don't really like the economic system, but I really don't feel any certain way about Russia.
Well, but let's look at how the United States, the narrative that they had. So, because why should you give a tinker's damn about Russia's economy? It ain't fucking with you. So, take that step the next further. Like Brother Legend was saying, think about what we've lived in, what we've experienced, what, all this stuff. We're supposed to sweep all of it under the rug. Let it be a bumpy ass rug we walking on and trust you for what? I like
But
to
with
know.
this, but with this rationality, anyone of any race can use this to discriminate against anything. Because if I'm using your
Another race
rationality,
can use
if
400 years of chattel slavery?
I'm talking about in terms of like viewing, like being, seeing an entire race in a certain way. Like if I had,
I know, but
10
we have 400
negative-
years of chattel slavery.
Right.
You weren't
got
around
proof.
400 years ago.
But my grandfather, I just told you, was born on a plantation.
I
His
don't believe
his
that.
grandfather before him was a slave.
That's horrible.
So let's pass down. What is it that y'all don't get?
Yeah, like I'm
I
like,
just
which
don't
ones you
understand.
get? Like it didn't go nowhere. It's passed down. Like what?
We don't
we had
hear.
towns and cities. I mean, we had little towns and cities that were burnt down, bombed.
Because white folks didn't like our prosperity. Okay, let's see. Are we supposed to just, hold hands and sing? Because if I sleep with you and I'm around you, we're just as better. And why talk about all that old stuff? Is that it?
I mean, I'd rather do that than sit on a TikTok live all day and complain about something that happened 300 years ago.
Why? Wait, hold it. Now, I really was trying to be nice. Fucking complain about it? What was the last person in your family got pew-pewed in the face by the po-po? Stopped by the po-po? Unalive by the po-po? Harassed by the po-po? Ain't
I
nobody
got
talking,
harassed by the police.
complaining about what happened 300 years ago. It happens every fucking day of our life. Are you kidding me?
I've
Really?
gotten harassed by the police.
What?
I've gotten
It wasn't
harassed by the
because you're
police.
black.
It went right.
Well, I guarantee if it were to happen to you, you would have assumed it was because you're black, and that's just
It's
reinforcing that
always
idea.
because we black. Being black is a political statement in this country. You can't get away from it. Are you serious? Like, am I gonna be in the car
I'm
oh my
not-
God,
I'm-
he stopped me because I don't know. I'm a
I'm not
valley
denying that
girl. What are
racism
you
exists.
saying?
I'm not
like,
denying
that
that
being
racism
black-
exists.
What?
I said I'm not denying that racism exists, but like just saying that it's like, oh, every single. I feel like I don't even know how to answer this, to be honest with you. I think our
Can't
worldviews are
because
just
you don't know what
so
it feels
completely
like
different.
every day. You don't have to
No,
get
I
up.
don't.
You're a white T man. You have absolutely nothing to worry about when you walk out that door. Acorn organization has proven there's a black couple they took with higher education, higher credit scores, better credit, more money, and a white couple, step above trailer trash, and they both went in to get a loan for a home, and the black people were denied, and the white people were given a loan. These are studies that have been done. Okay, I'm
Yeah,
not just
I'm sure
talking.
that's happened, and that's horrible. But I'm not someone who would like actively try to perpetrate the system. I'd be like, hell no, I'm
But
I'm
you
gonna
came
hire
here-
someone or help someone on the basis of like their character and what they've done. I don't care
But
about
you
what you look like.
benefit from it because
Right.
your grandfather knew when he came to America that you would be able to benefit from it. You're still white, right? Like you don't have any black mixture in your family?
No, I'm like
Okay.
really white.
So
Yeah.
your family knows to stay white so that you can continue to benefit from it. There's plenty of options out here these days. All type of assortment of flavors of people for you to choose from. But yet your family chooses to stay white because they know that it'll keep them on the safe side of things.
If that's the case, then do you date interracially?
That's not a valid question.
I mean, but the logic you're giving me, it's like, well, if you get married or get with a white person, like it obviously makes your life easier. So why, as you as a black man, if you're so concerned about your children having a better life, why wouldn't you be with a white woman?
I don't think assimilation is a way to liberation for black people. So, of course, I'm not going to assimilate. You assimilating, on the other hand, and your parents choosing to assimilate, on the other hand, would work to their favor because they are white.
Carnelian, I am willing to go back to Europe. I actually want to go.
And then you'll assimilate there and still be white.
Yeah.
All right.
Dope.
I'm going to go to the next guest. Thanks for coming
Okay.
up, Skates.
Great convo. Love y'all.
All right. We need to cleanse the live, man. Somebody throw some roses up here or something, man. He said he loved us. The devil don't love nobody. Let's go to the next guest. Ba Impu. Give us your age, race, and pronouns, please. Thank you, Timothy. We need some roses just to smell up the stank he just left behind. Ba, what's going on?
26, black, male.
All right, talk to us.
All right, so are we talking about the background or what's up? What's the
Yeah,
topic?
we're talking about the background pretty much, politics and blackness and how they work or don't work.
I don't understand how a lot of us could go for either party without having stabilized our community. Like, they think voting is going to help, and it ain't helped once in the history of us being able to vote. It's ridiculous. And then the black community should never, ever, ever be pro-Israel. Like, that's crazy. It was videos that were taken down. We went there. These motherfuckers was spitting on us, calling us nigga and damn fake ass Hebrew. Like, come on now, y'all over here supporting people that would freaking spit on you, put you back in chains. That's literally, that's their doctrine. The Zionist doctrine is literally to put the what's that word they use? It's the Hebrew version of apostate. It's real fucked up. What is that word? Either way, they pretty much slave. They would put anybody that's not
Alabid. That's Arabic, but they call it Alabid, a slave.
Nah, not that one.
Okay.
But it's they fake Ashkenazi version of Hebrew for slave. Apostate.
Goyim.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Oh, somebody said that in the comments.
Yeah, I think that's it. But pretty much, if you not Hebrew, not related to any of the 12 tribes, or so they say. Really, if you not convert Ashkenaz, you gonna be enslaved, and you gonna help them build their new civilization. Like, this is what this is the Zionist belief. They are superior. They are the chosen ones of God. But last time I checked, they burn in the sunlight just like all the rest of them.
Oh yeah, that's the funny part. That's actually funny. Medical statistic, y'all. Ashkenazi-ish people actually have, I believe it was like vastly different. I believe it's like they're like 10 to 15 times more likely to get melanoma than the Palestinians that have adapted to that region because they're not from there. Like the sun is literally burning their skin up in Israel. It's hilarious. That's how
That's
you know they're
why.
not from there.
That's why instead of building their own, they keep going and stealing houses from people because they can't even work in the sunlight.
Sure can. And for all the Christians that are out there, Jesus Christ himself said all the fake Jews were children of the devil. So, that's why I'm like, if you don't read, I don't know what to say about you. Jesus said that. So since you're a Christian and you're a follower of Christ, go look what he said about the small hats and what they're doing. And the synagogue of Satan. That's the other thing. You ain't
Right.
living right. You ain't doing right. You think you above everybody. Well, you're in the synagogue of Satan and you're going to get yours. So it's right there, but people don't want to hear it.
The ancient Kemites even had it written down that one of our own created a race that was self-destructive to us and themselves, and they freaking imprisoned them on the continent of Europe. It's written down on the.
You talking about Yakub?
Oh yeah. Like this is people want to say, oh, that's just myth and da 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 da, but there were people who are genetically different from us, but similar in many ways, that freaking went across the world raping, killing, and raping,
yeah, you can't say all that, man.
raping,
Yeah.
raping and unaliving people.
Okay.
When they learned how to get off that island, man. It's just crazy that people can literally look at stuff written down in history and ignore it.
Well, I hear you. Let the next guest get some in Africa with the Sankofa symbol. Give us your age, race, and pronouns, please. African Revolution.
Hello, good evening to everybody.
Peace.
And I am 36. I am African, from the diaspora. Me too, I'm Ghanaian, but I was born in Europe.
All right.
What I wanted to say is that the first, the screenshot here in this Black African first, before even being Democrats, Republicans, or pro-Israel, pro-Palestine, whatever. It is really how we should start looking at things, because everything that is not concerning our status as African people who are always in a perpetual state of disenfranchisement, of being exploited economically by an elite which works with a system that is structured around our exploitation, our subjugation, both on natural resources when concerning Africa, natural agricultural resources, all the way
So
to human resources.
How come it's like?
Do you hear me well?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay.
Slam,
Okay. Sometimes
hold on
the
a moment.
connection is going in.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Talk to us.
Yes. Anyway, what I wanted to state is this mindset is good, and also for you particular who are living where in their home from where this system of global exploitation works, which is the United States of America. And you as the subject that had been historically, your presence is there specifically because of this exploitation kind of working their economic structure, which is what happened with the slavery and so on. That you are to be focused on being united upon your blackness and your Africanness before any religious, political, or social reasons for division. As long as we are united, because I see the struggle for Africa as including the Africa, the people in Africa, and all the people of African descent around the world, being you, the African Americans, or the Afro-Brazilians, or whatever, even us here in Europe as sons of migrants, because we are all here displaced from the continent for the specific reason that this world economic system, which is a supremacist one, needs within our exploitation also exploitation of the African human resources. And this is the reason where there have been deportation first, and the reason why there is migration now, bringing us here in Europe and other Africans in the United States or in Americas too. So I completely agree with this statement of Black African first.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, brother.
You're welcome.
You live up to the Sunkofa symbol in your profile picture. I'm glad.
Hey, I got a question.
Yes, because I think it's a great relevance, because we have to learn from our history,
Yes.
which is different from what is taught us on schools or in the medias.
Right.
Africans back then had ownership of their economies and their resources. Just think about a figure like Mansa Musa. He's the richest person in the history of humankind, the emperor of the Mali Empire, specifically because he owns the gold mines in his empire. So this is remembering from the past to understand the future. So this is, and also this is from my people, because I am Akan, of course. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Ashe, appreciate
I have a
you.
question. Hey, before he go, if I could get a question, if that's
Okay.
fine.
Go ahead.
Yes.
The part that you mentioned about the situation being the way that it is, how come it has to be that way? How come all of what you just said has to be the way that it is? You know, with the thievery, what happened? Where's humanity in this process? Is that a word? Is humanity an actual word?
I think that this in the process of when it is specific on when this kind of economic structure was born, which is specifically in northwestern Europe of the what was the 16th or 17th centuries, in particularly when the Dutch first and the British later adopted this kind of economy based on these merchant companies, and these merchant companies are private, so they are profit based, and this being profit based overcome what we try to consider or define as humanity today, no? And
What did the
so when
if I may,
when
what did
they understand that they can exploit these human beings from Africa, exploiting the fact that there is division in Africa, because back then there
that's
was not something like consideration of we are all one people of Africans. No, we were still thinking, and sadly, it is still today in Africans, to some degrees, upon the differences within ethnic groups or religion. You see, if I am an Akan from Ghana, and I see these people are aware they're not Akan, I can even exploit them in a way of conquest, for example, and this results also in slavery because mostly they're prisoners of wars.
What do you mean? What do
And-
you mean? What do you mean exploit? Like what
Exploitation, I mean, it's the difference between exploitation and just exchange is, for example, if I have something that you need, you have two choices. One is come to me, overpower me if you have the means, and just take what you need without compensating me of nothing.
That's exploitation.
But an exchange that's exploitation. If you want to make an exchange, I see, okay, you have this thing. Okay, what can I offer to you in order that you give me that thing that I need? So the other thing has the opportunity to mention something that he needs that the other can provide and make an exchange, which is beneficial to both the actors involved. While exploitation is, and you see with the Western economy and structure is based on exploitation.
How did
also about imperialism,
Right.
based on
Capitalism is
colonialism,
exploitation.
now neo-colonialism, and so on.
Yeah.
That's my bad. That's cool. Yeah, I was just curious to know. Like, yeah. So how's everybody? How you doing, Mr. Legend?
I'm well, man. What's going on with you?
Getting a little bit heavier. I think I'm getting a little wiser.
I heard that. You want to talk about the topic?
No, I heard him talking, and I was just curious to know. Appreciate it. I was just curious to know, about the overall exploitation. But the gold is what I was more interested in. Like, how are they still in the gold? Are the contracts? Do they got contracts that allow them to mine for a certain amount of time, or how come they're taking gold out of the country? Is the question.
Now there are many means. I think, for example, in my country, which is Ghana, which is a gold producer country also historically.
Ghana got gold out the wazoo. Ghana, man, the Khan chief I seen had gold all over, bruh. Like, it put my ring to shame, bro. Gold
Actually, the reason
all
of the
over.
accounts to being there is actually likely linked
I
to gold.
understand that though.
Search of gold mines.
Yeah. Beautiful.
But I think that, for example, there is also this phenomenon of illegal mining, which is called the people practicing it are called galamancy in Ghana, and that is surely a mean of obtaining illegally mines. What I heard when I went there, because unfortunately I didn't have the opportunity to be there very often in my life, but the only time I went, which was in 2020. So about that period, I questioned my relatives there about how is the situation with Galamancy, if it is still possible to make business with gold and so on. And they told me that now there is basically a crack down of the government against all these informal business in order to favor just the big firms, the big companies, which means more exploitation going on.
Right.
Because
So
you see,
so
what it works, because the main way to work it is we have basically designed by role to be just raw material exporters.
Yeah.
You see,
They don't
in this
refine
all
it.
this history of Ghana having gold, the first refinery is about to be opened now.
Right.
Ghana never had a gold refinery up to
Right.
now. They're just exporting raw gold
Who
for
controls-
others to refine.
who controls the refinery?
White
Exactly.
folks do.
That is the point I was coming to.
That's
That the
if white
problem
folks
is
own
that
it, that's
this
the problem.
refinery was to be owned 20% by the state-owned company of Ghana.
What
The
state-owned
other
company?
80% will be for an Indian company,
Oh no, that's not a
which
good
made the
deal.
investment.
That's not a good deal.
You see,
No, that's
exactly.
not
It's not a good deal. It's not this the resolution of the
That's not a
problem.
good deal.
You see, first to have the idea to have a refinery, we make it where we are going to earn less than the 20% of the whole operation
How
of
is
that
that?
which should be a
How is
national asset.
how is that?
This is how the exploitation goes on.
My brother, how is that possible? Please explain to me how is someone getting more of what we have and we're getting less of what we own? Can you explain that to
Because
me?
we are still these independence days that we have in Africa, mainly around the 1960s, are not real independence, because we are still working within the same imperialistic economic structure that are never changed since before colonialism, during.
Benny cut out.
Oh, man.
Bro
Well,
was
yeah, young
spitting.
man
This is
up
the wide
above. It
position of
happens.
Africa and Africans worldwide is what it is, because yes, no, because I was going to, because the reason I think that there are people who try to take Africa out of this situation, of this economic system. There are many good leaders like Kwame Nkrumah from Ghana, for example, was one of them.
Thomas and
But when he started to
I hear what
transform Ghana economy from a raw material exporter to a manufacturing one. He was opening many
So
factories
my
to
question
produce
is
what Ghanaians need.
why
You know,
why
and
how could you give me, let's listen to me, how could you give me more of what you own and then I turn around and charge you more for what you gave me that you already own? Does that make sense?
of course, it doesn't make sense. The whole situation doesn't make sense. But this is how the situation is. But for concluding how this situation works, for example, I was talking about how the Nkrumah was trying to transform Ghana economy into a manufacturing one. You know how it ended? Basically, it was a CIA operation. Now there are documents disclosed about that.
The
Of the
CIA.
United States government, the CIA,
That's
and overthrown the Ghanaian president Kwame Nkrumah
that's
by
disrespectful.
first economic warfare, by destabilizing the price of cocoa, which is the main product that Ghana was exporting back then,
How come ain't nobody
by
saying nothing?
obstaculating the construction of a dam
Bro,
to
you
produce
acting like
electricity.
white
Wait, brother,
supremacy
yeah,
don't
brother
exist,
African,
man.
hold on a
Like,
minute. What are you
yeah.
talking about?
He acting like Africa's
I
supposed to
was
have
talking
liberated
about
themselves.
how the coup that overthrown Nkrumah, which first president of Ghana,
Not you. Now we're
which was
not
trying
talking to
to
you, African.
take the
We know
country
about
out of
Kwame
this
Wait, hold on,
nonsense.
African. Who was up there talking?
It was
Talking
me.
about something was disrespectful.
That was Slam that said that, young lady.
No, it's not
Well,
disrespectful. Why do you
what is
think
he
it is?
saying? Wait,
Are you
hold on,
talking
African.
my
Hold
Please,
on,
thing
African,
hold
saying is
hold
on.
on.
disrespectful?
African, hold
on.
on. 1 second. We got to clear something up.
It's
What
already
was
clear.
you saying? Who said something about the CIA? Is
He
what I
did.
want to know.
He was trying to finish talking about the CIA.
I was talking about
I was
CIA.
saying somebody that was saying it was disrespectful.
No, that wasn't saying that. What he was saying was disrespectful.
What? Who was saying what?
It's some.
I don't know.
I don't forgot, but it's
one of the
something.
brothers was
Something
questioning.
was said, and it just kind of blowed me because he was talking and I was listening to what the man was saying. You know.
Well, y'all know the CIA
But he did,
unalived
though,
every
just
leader
don't
they
know.
had. Who doesn't know that?
I think,
And
like,
quit
you know what? I
trying to talk about the Africans and what they can and cannot do.
I'm not
Because
talking. I'm
Negroes
not
right
talking about
here
that. I'm
can't
not
be.
talking
Wait,
about
hold
that.
on a minute.
Hold on. What we're not going to do is we're not going to disrespect Smart Sister in this platform. We're not going to talk to her as if she is not an elder, as if she's not highly respected in this space, and if she's not a black
Yeah,
woman.
now you know me better than that.
No. We're not going to listen. Just what we're going to do is we're going to allow not even allow. We're going to uplift Smart Sister to being able to finish her point in full. Go ahead, Queen.
Please, thank you, Timothy. What I was trying to say, whoever was interjecting stuff on this brother, we are not in the place to sit up here and talk about what Africans have done and didn't do and how y'all do that and how, when right here in the United States, we can't rub two pennies together and the only thing we seem to be able to build is a church. So please, and the government not has did the counterintelligence program here to keep us from doing anything. And of course, they did the same thing in the motherland. And what we got is ignorant leadership that is under their thumb and will do whatever the hell they say. That's the problem.
Okay, what is that? What? Okay, Mama. I mean, if I may,
Yes,
please.
the point I was going is exactly that, because when we had a good leader like that, with that destabilization that happened, at the end, the people revolted against the President Kwame Nkrumah. And from that time on, a series of bad leaders, all complicit with the interests of the West instead of the interests of the Ghanaian people, is what created the situation that all our economies in Africa and even of us diasporans, African diasporans, are running into. So basically that we do not control our economies, that we do not have functional economies among us and within Africa. This is what I wanted to say, but I don't want to be respectful or to don't take a responsibility of what we should do, because of course it's all on us to understand that we have to unite and to promote this kind of mentality.
You know, brother, I think anyone who's kind of confused about like why Africa has like been in the situation that it's been in.
I'm cool. I'm cool. He explained. He was very thorough. He was very. I'm thankful that he shared that.
I would just say it's the exact same phenomenon, unfortunately, that's happened to black people across the world. So when we ask, I think when anybody asks like, oh, you know, why haven't African leaders always like, why has there been such failure of African leadership? It's the exact same thing that's happened in black American communities, where we've had the best and brightest of black American leadership has been snuffed out over the last 100 years. There's a reason why Malcolm was unalived. There was a reason why what's his name again? Martin Luther King was unalived. There was a reason why Fred Hampton was unalived. There's a reason why COINTELPRO destabilized the Black Panthers. They destabilized the nation. Like it's important to understand the history of black liberation of the 20th century in America is a history of like the American security agencies trying to undermine, unalive, like and destroy black liberation. It's the exact same in Africa. In Africa, you've had all the African leaders who were revolutionary and who had the hearts of their nations in their minds, from Lumumba to Sankara to Nkrumah. All of them were removed by coups. And you see decades later, the Europeans and the Americans just declassify it and they say, we were involved. And all this stuff is declassified information. That the overthrow of Nkrumah, the overthrow of Gaddafi, the overthrow of Lumumba, the overthrow of Sankara, and all of these things, they destabilize entire regions. So I think, we have a lot more in common.
All facts.
I think
that is a fact, brother. That is a fact. Yeah, Slim, you.
No, just go ahead. It's just saying that they are all facts. So go ahead.
Should I wait to be introduced, brothers?
Go ahead, man. I think Brother Legends, unless you want to introduce yourself, go ahead, bro.
Yeah, go ahead. Was that Solo?
Yeah, brother. I mean,
go ahead.
African, man, you're absolutely correct, man. And we need to have a mass revolution movement. When we do land reform, we kick all of them out. You know what I'm saying? We need to, as a people, get rid of our own biases and recognize that we have a common enemy who's been extorting us. Like the franc, which most some of the southern countries use as a currency. It does not benefit us. It benefits the French the most. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of systems that are simply just not fair. They use us as kind of a place for them to go and grab new resources because their countries are getting overpopulated, and the need to refuel and the need, you know what I'm saying? We need to cut them out. We need to make deals on our own terms. You know what I'm saying? We need to make sure that we can hold them accountable, and if they can't stay in line, we need to threaten them. You feel me?
Absolutely. I mean, it's got to get the point. Like I heard somebody say, instead of saying we shall overcome, no, we shall come over. Can you imagine? And I always say in my mind, because I'm a writer and I think of stuff. Can you imagine if all of us were united the way we should, where we would come over there to help y'all, y'all would come over here to help us? Where will white people go? Because they're the minority on the planet. Okay, and the fact of the matter, if we all decided, hey, if y'all touch one freaking hair on the head of Ibrahim Toure, we gonna turn this mother out. Okay, see, that's what they hate. That's the true brother right there. And if more and the other presidents and stuff of Mali and Niger, we go country by country till you get everybody on that same page and let them know y'all you got to bring some to get some. Okay, and we can
You know
come
what, I
over
think,
there and tear some shit up. I don't, that's the way I roll.
sister, you know what? I think
I'm trying
I
to
think that's one of the.
have as less violence as possible. But I mean, I hear what everybody is saying
We the
about
only
that.
ones say that.
What are you talking
We the
about?
No, I'm not
only
listening.
ones talk about no violence and oh my God, it can't be that bad. That's the humanity we have. What if we just gave the same energy to everybody that they've been giving
That's
to
how
us?
come I asked.
That's all.
That's how come I
Slim,
asked when I first
but
came
Slim,
on.
Slim, brother, Slim.
What is humanity?
No,
Is
Slim.
that just a word?
There's no less violence is possible, man. You feel me? That the option is off the table. You know what I'm saying? Um, all African people have to get on code. You feel me? And when we say get on code, that means same agenda is to bring our people up. If you go to Africa, Slim, most people don't. Depending where you're going, no electricity, no clean water. Diseases. When beneath our feet there is more than enough resources. You know what I'm saying? To turn everything up. The fact that Congo is not like Dubai today is unbelievable, Slim. If you were to go just list down all the minerals Congo has, and as big as it is, Congo should be bigger than Dubai because they have more resources and they have more than enough to sustain the population and more. You know what I'm saying?
Congo is the most resource-rich country I think on planet Earth. Congo, like if you took Congo out of the global supply chain, it would completely derail every single kind of like high-tech gadget that we have because of the cobalt, the cobalt that we use in every single one of our laptops,
So
TVs,
imagine the
smartphones.
enormous power of that we should bring on the global stage in geopolitics if we act united and getting ownership of our resources.
African, I think that's why I say, like, when you said that, like, the truth is that we have not really been free. In like, I know we got independence on paper, but I don't know if Africa's been fully free. And I think for me, I think one of the most important things to understand is that, like, I think our biggest resources as African people and people of African descent is like each other. Our biggest resource is each other and other black people. And unfortunately, I think it's sad because I really wish we lived in a world where it was everyone versus white supremacy. But that's not the world we live in, man. The world is not the world we live in is not like we do Power Rangers with every other shade of people who want to get rid of some white supremacy. That's not the world we live in. Unfortunately, who we have as our resource is like other black people. And I think, do you know what I think in terms of like how a lot of people, like, because I know there's been a lot of discourse over Palestine the last few days, and I think even the engagement with Palestine and how black people engage with the Palestinian issue, is, I think a lot of it comes from like American ignorance for lack of a better word, because, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but I think it's American geographic ignorance because in America there's not a massive Arabian population. There's a lot of black people who will go like most of their lives not really interacting with Arabian people. So like and most black Americans are 100% ignorant of what Arabian culture is. And I say this as somebody who is deeply, I am deeply critical of like white supremacy and the wickedness and the violence the white supremacy like has inflicted on our people. I'm so critical of that, and I'm telling you, as someone who's just being candid, that the Arabian region is the most racist place in the world.
Bro,
on average, the average Arabian is more racist than the average white person. They're so violently anti. It's hard to put into words. This is the most violently anti-black region in the world.
Africa, bro.
I am in a position to add something about this topic.
I really think it's really important that like sometimes like our African Americans and Black Americans discourse with the Africans on the continent who have to engage with Arabian populations a lot more. Arabians are so unbelievably anti, so hate you with a burning violent passion that it would be hard for me to even articulate.
Bro, they enslaved us. Why? They enslaved a lot of our brothers. And despite them even being Muslims first, you know what I'm saying? Some of the brothers in the north,
yeah, they don't give a hell if you're. They don't even see like West African Muslims as proper Muslims.
I can see. I have some experience from my position because I was born in Italy, and here you have a larger population of North Africans than Black Africans themselves. And actually, in the area where I live, in the city Milan, this area is basically a North African ghetto. You will hear they are all North Africans here. Okay, so from my experience, that I see is first of all that they do not identify as Africans. This is a very important point to be made. They consider themselves as part of Arab culture, Arabian culture, and so on. And some migration that brings Africans here in Italy, the one that came through illegal routes, basically consists of Africans from mostly West Africa and the Horn of Africa, crossing the Sahara Desert with unbearable conditions, and the ones who survive arrive in North African countries. And the situation that they find there is that they basically have to hide all during the day hours and just walk during night, because if the Tunisian or Libyan police caught them, they basically just take them off to the desert, leave them, people, even pregnant women, children, with no water in the desert, just to starve.
That's true.
There. This is what happens to Africans before even having the opportunity, after being robbed of all the money that they have with them, to pay these people who cramp them into boats that are so crowded that they are more easy to sink than to reach the European coasts, and to be picked up by the Italian coastal guards. This is what happens.
Who's doing that?
In the Arabian countries.
Who's doing that?
This is
the Morocco,
North
Libya,
African
Tunisia
authorities. Basically, yes. Usually, I'm talking about Italy in particular because I'm here, but also there's a route through Morocco, through Spain, which is basically similar.
African,
which is based on that. But so basically, the Libya and Tunisia. What happens with Italy specifically?
I was going to ask you, why do you think that that Sudan is not being talked about, brother? The Arabs, what I'm saying, from the north, they're coming in, they're unaliving.
That's not the problem with Sudan right now.
Bro, it
In
is such
Sudan,
a
yes.
nasty situation right now, and the fact that they're bringing in the Janjaweed and all these people. It's basically like a free kind of land right now. That's how it feels like, where they can just come in, take whatever resource they want, unalive as many black, specifically, people, and leave with no consequences.
Yes, what is happening in Sudan is basically it's a war is
Between
with
the
the
two
proportion
generals,
of
isn't
what
it?
happened in Europe with some populations like the Slavs and the Jews. Just to don't use words that can affect this life, and but this is something that of major proportions and is fueled by interest of so many countries because there are USA interests, there are Russian interests, there are Israeli interests, there are Saudi Arabia interests, there are United Arab Emirates interests there.
You know what's crazy, African, is that you have soldiers from all the way from Libya, all the way from the opposite side of Sudan, coming through all the way to come to Sudan to commit atrocities like that, bro.
Well, I mean, they're being funded by outside powers. Of course, they're going to fund any and all people groups that even remotely come close to looking black to go to other spaces that are also other African spaces for the purpose of committing those atrocities, because that's how Europeans operate. That's how Arabs operate. That's how the oppressors operate. They don't want to have the visual representation of them being boots on the ground themselves in those spaces, because then we would know exactly who the enemy is. However, it makes it a lot more beneficial for them as a strategic method of infiltrating these spaces if they get a whole bunch of people that already were beefing with that space in the first place, or have no problem with accepting a whole bunch of resources and money to be able to just go into that space and commit these atrocities. So all they have to do is just foster the same beef that they've been fostering since the beginning of all of this. Oh, hey, I'm going to give you a couple of these kabooms if you could just go over there and, just make sure that you bring us back 2,000 of them, and then we could sell them and use them however we want to use them. Like, they're prisoners of war. They're going to be sitting in restricted spaces in your space anyway, so why not just send them over to us? They've been doing the same method for centuries. So
Tim,
that's why they do it.
add on that, most of these missionaries and these groups, the John Jaweed, they don't consider themselves black. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's the indoctrination, brother. Like
Yes, even if they are maybe they should be likely considered black by definitely. I think even if I am an outsider, but by U.S. standards, they are likely to be considered black, but they are not in a place like Sudan.
There's
It's
something.
more. It's not just about skin tone, but it's more also cultural.
All right,
And
there's something I want to address because it's all the everything. Like, if we're gonna talk about this the way we've been talking about it, then we may as well connect the dots. Because Dr. Neely Fuller Jr. talks about it. He says the in all 10 areas of, well, he says 9 areas, but Dr. Francis added the 10th, which is health.
It's 9.
He calls it 9, but she calls it 10. So I refer to it as 10. But in the areas of people activity that is influenced by racism, white supremacy, Dr. Neely Fuller Jr. says that the goal of white supremacists are to confuse us. So in economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, war, and health, the white supremacist tries to make it unknown what his intentions are. So he does that in sex by confusing us with new terms by which we now identify and mess with our sense of self and who we are, and he does that with politics and tells us to align with people that are not directly interested in liberating black people. And he does that with war, even by creating confusion in the Congo and making it look like black people are just going to war with themselves. It's not me, you know. So he confuses us over and over again. So, you know, we could talk about all the areas, but it's going to keep going back to the same oppressor, and it's going to keep going back to the same tactics. People that don't believe they're black and think that they're other things is because they confuse. People that feel like, you know, the what was the two tribes in Rwanda? The
The
Houthis.
Hutus and the Tutsis.
Yeah, right. So it's just more confusion. So it's like, you know, that's always their tactic in every area.
And a lot of the conflicts that they capitalize on didn't exist before their meddling.
Right.
So the Hutus and the Tutsis have lived together for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years without mass slaughter, until you get the dynamics of the colonialists creating power dynamics and ethnic dynamics that are
They were the same
that are
people,
essentially just a
basically.
powder keg. And then when
Right.
and then when
And
the
then
powder
they
keg
also,
explodes,
another thing Dr. Phillip was saying, they try to control both sides of the question. So whatever the outcomes are going to be, they're trying to they want to control both sides of the issue so they can keep the narratives and keep going what they want. So that's the other thing. It not only to keep us confused, but to say, okay, I got this part and this part. So what y'all gonna do? You know,
Yep. There's
it's a
also this
trip.
part
But what I was saying was,
there's also well,
go
brother.
ahead,
There's
brother.
also this part of there's this part of Dr. Neely Fuller Jr.'s book, the compensatory code. I'm sorry, the compensatory counter racist code. Again, Dr. Neely Fuller Jr., the compensatory counter racist code. That I just want to have everybody kind of listen to real quick, because like we got to understand that we're not dealing with country bumpkins. We're not dealing with like, oh, they're the NASCAR toting, beer drinking, like we're not dealing with that. We got to be very, very clear about that, because like I think that we tend to kind of get a misconception as to who can be considered as YT supremacists. And it says very clearly here, page 10, explanation. It says the racists, YT, supremacists by comparison and in relation to non-white people are the most powerful of all the people in the known universe. They are willing and able to dominate all non-white people at all times, in all places in the known universe, and in all areas of activity. The YT supremacists are smart. They are also very sophisticated. They have a great deal of knowledge and understanding of many things. They are not naive or simple-minded. Their thought, speech, and actions are usually complex or greatly evolved in form and technique. They are very misleading of others and very clever in doing so. And then he goes on to talk about how they are very strategic and pride themselves on being able to manipulate non-YT people's emotions and actions. So we need to be very, very clear that those are the types of individuals that we are dealing with. And we are very much so. Oh, yes. Yeah, they enjoy. Yes, listen, they celebrate every time that they are able to manipulate non-white people into the acts in which they desire them to go into. They celebrate it. We can see that very clearly. We see it all the time. Every single time that they celebrate the old times in which they've done it, they celebrate the current times in which they've done it. Whether we see it or not, they very much so do celebrate it amongst themselves. They are very strategic. They are very intelligent about that. Hence the reason why we have to, if we are going to actually stand on business about this, we have to approach it from that lens. We can't approach it from like, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to, read a few books here and there, or I'm just going to read an article, or I'm just going to, hey, I experienced some bad stuff here and there, so that's how I know all about the ins and outs of racism, white supremacy. Nah, you got to research it. You got to investigate it. You got to consult with the scholars. If you can't consult with them because they're passed on, then all right, consult with their works. You have to flip open the books. You got to get, if they are smart and intelligent about the manipulation of us, then we got to get smart and intelligent about the methods in which they use to manipulate us so that they don't have the ability to do that. If you become smarter than they are, more sophisticated than they are, then then we do have a chance. But if we are sitting here thinking that, oh, we can just go after it and destroy this with no knowledge of it, then we're just going to keep failing time and time and time again, y'all.
Fact. But Tim, I was just gonna add in there about Sudan. The 30% that has been doing the mass unaliving in Sudan, they do consider themselves Sudanese Arabs. You know what I'm saying? And they look heavily down upon the ethnic and indigenous black people who live in those areas. And Sudan is one of the most diverse country in the world.
I can believe that.
Okay, but what's the
You know,
bro? They're all
you,
still
yeah, you know they're all black.
That's going on.
The Arabized Sudanese people are black people. They're just Arabized. They're culturally Arabized, but then it's just another example of like a lot of like because of a lot of like black people or black Africans identifying with like with other things or other than Africanity, but like the issue, the people fighting each other in Sudan, or if you saw them, just like face to face, you'd call both of them black.
See, but also the thing, like, again, we have to understand the basic premise that any person that looks like they could represent the African community, they're going to use, manipulate, brainwash into fighting against their own people. They're gonna do that. Like, that's just across the board. And this is also why it is critical for us as Black African people to research the history of Africa. And a scholar that you can look at, if y'all don't have time to sit down and read books, which is in and of itself ridiculous, but we should all make time to be able to do that. However, for those that are more of a visual learner, research a scholar by the name of Dr. John Henrik Clark. He talks about a lot of this, but in order to be able to understand the reason why things are the way that they are and the reason why certain spaces are colonized or brainwashed the way that they are, we have to understand African history. We have to look into it. We got to see in what spaces in which we're colonized. We have to see what exactly have the Arabs done in those spaces for our African family to feel as though they need to be dedicated to those principles rather than dedicated to themselves as African people. We got to understand these things. And very much so, if we're looking at the Arab slave trade, family, that the Arab slave trade started around 650 AD, 700 AD, and it's still going on today. And the average Levantine population, or the average Levantine people group, which includes Egypt, has about 4 to 15% African DNA because of the essays of African women during the Arab slave trade. They still have parts of our genetic amongst them because of how much atrocities they're committing against us. And they're still committing these atrocities against us today. So, and they've used Islam to do that. They've used every form of oppression and violence to do that. It's all the same tactics from the same two oppressors that we have been facing for a very long time. The rest of the globe ain't gonna help because the rest of the globe is still operating off anti-blackness, and many spaces. Anti-blackness is global. You will see it within our own spaces also, because there's like, you can see the skin bleaching market, for example, in Africa is billions. But the reason why I say
we do not have friends worldwide. This is what we have to understand. We do not have friends.
Family. This is the reason why I bring this up. This is the reason why I bring this up.
That's not how we are designed to exist.
Exactly.
We are not designed
how we're designed to exist. But listen, family, we gotta move away from the thought process of like, okay, well, I mean, that's not how. Listen, they have brainwashed us to think this way. Originally, our ancient African consciousness was not that. We understood very clearly about common sense, logic, and we pursued life as such because we operated off of justice, peace, equality, and a sense of trying to uplift other people groups that we saw that were in despair. Hence the reason why we tried to civilize Europeans so damn much. However, fast forward to today, we have been actively prevented from gaining access to that consciousness again by the restriction of our own history, which is why we got to be so diligent and on code to the level of like ferocity that has never been seen before of researching our African rootedness, period. Otherwise, we're lost.
Can I please ask, are you on code with us, bro? I'm genuinely asking.
On code? Yeah. What? Yeah. What? Why would you? What
I'm
would you
talking
say?
about Slims, because it's kind of like asking, you're like kind of like challenging everything we're kind of saying.
No, I'm not challenging nothing. I'm curious to know. That's all I'm interested in. I'm interested in when I hear a point, he said 40 to 50 that are mixed with the Arab, bloodline, the DNA. Yeah.
No, I said 4 to 15%. I said 4 to 15% of Levantine people groups have African genetics because of the Arab slave trade, because of the atrocities that are being committed against African women that are still going on today. That's what I said.
There are so many things, because there are also another part is that they usually proceed to wholesale castrations of all male slaves that they took to Arab countries. This is another phase of the medal of the Arab slave trade. And that is a reason that maybe this mark of African DNA is likely even less represented, not indicative of the scale of the amount of people that they took to the Arab lands during the trans-Saharan slave trade.
It's also indicative that the same psychoanalysis Dr. Francis Cress Welsing calls a fear of whitey genetic annihilation, and she uses that as the basis for anti-blackness. Before, even before systemic racism, non-black people have this fear of genetic annihilation from black people that prompts them to want to remove the genetic material from our men, because they see men as a threat to their survival of keeping that phenotype, because men have the ability to impose relations, if you know what I mean, like non-consensually. Men have that ability. And the fact that men, black men, if they so decided, would have the ability to annihilate a phenotype that they hold so dear and core to their identity, was something that creates a lot of fear and animosity. So in order to remove that threat, they would remove our brothers and our ancestors, testes. So,
Brother Legend, can I ask a question?
yeah.
All Africans can answer. What's your thoughts on open border concept and a one African currency?
It's the only way we'll survive. And I know a lot of Africans don't want to hear that, but it's the only way.
Yeah, everybody can answer, of course.
Well, I think that the unity is the main way to get out of the current situation where Africa and Africans worldwide find ourselves. Because if we have many individual attempts by single countries to get out of this imperialistic control of our economies and try to develop our countries with our resources, in total autonomy by outsiders' interests. The problem is that these countries were always individuals, so they were left alone. For example, when happened to so many attempts like Lumumba in Congo, Kwame Nkrumah itself in Ghana, Touré in Guinea, I don't know, Sankara in Burkina Faso in the 80s. There are always individual attempts, and one of the ways, that this Western neoliberal capitalistic system finds to destabilize and cause coups or otherwise regime change upon these countries is by economic means. So let's make an example. One country, let's take Nigeria alone, which is a big economy. 250 million people. We are talking about the largest African country by population. Decide to nationalize all its oil, and Nigeria is a major oil producer in Africa. They decide to nationalize its oil in order to resell it at a fair price instead of accepting these 20% or 10% of the revenues that we usually do. What the Western countries are going to do is to starve this country to death. They just will not buy the oil from Nigeria, but buy from the neighboring countries who are willing to accept the continuation of this exploitation system. And Nigeria will have no customer for its oil and will be forced to find a way, or it will have economic disruption. And this will cause unrest and so a regime change. If all of Africa unites, if we are all united, we should have the possibility to block a large portion of these resources.
Could I ask you a question?
A large portion enough that the rest of the world cannot bear to survive without. And so they will be forced to come to terms with us. This is what why we have to stand for unity, and why Pan-Africanism is the way out for Africa of this from this position of being exploited by parasitary means, by a parasitary economic structure in the West that base its high living standards upon the exploitation and unfair exploitation and extraction of resources from others. Unity is our way out.
I heard that.
United, we are stronger. That's the way.
Absolutely.
You know, Africa, before they drew up the lands, there were no borders. You know what I'm saying? And I think as African people, we should have more than enough rights to travel within any country in Africa as we wish.
There were. This is why the reason that I like to use the Sankofa symbol, and I love to study history of Africa, because all started from there. This discovery of the real history of Africa. When you see the history just of a region that it is where most of the African diaspora comes from, which is West Africa, you have some communities that are developed as long-distance traders. You know, we have this trans-Saharan trade. So basically, we have merchants that are able to travel from, I don't know, Mali today all the way to Tunis and go back. You see Mansa Musa make his pilgrimage from Mali all the way to Saudi Arabia and came back. So you imagine how many countries, because there are many more countries than the 54 countries that are in Africa today. And all this traveling happens. Even in West Africa itself, we have two communities. One are the Hausa, that are now the people mostly based in northern Nigeria, that they are long distance travelers. So they find them from Niger all the way to Ghana. You find Hausa people because they are long distance traders, and their language, Hausa, is a lingua franca in that region. The saying is from the Wangara long distance merchants. These are Mandinka from the area around Mali, Guinea, northern Ivory Coast. They did the same, and the language, Wangara or Bambara, is a lingua franca in that region too. So you see how many examples you have.
That's same as Swahili as well. Same as Swahili.
Exactly. That is the same thing that happened with the Swahili. They were masters of the Indian Ocean. They traveled all the way to China, Indonesia, or India, or the Arab Peninsula to make their trades. So imagine how borderless it was. There are many entities, political entities in Africa, but traveling was not disrupted by the presence of so many polities. Now you have also this system of commerce that was called mute trade, where people do not speak. That is based on people putting the merchandise and then retreat and wait for the other party to put the amount of their resource in exchange, and they retreat, and there was no stalling, and it was this kind of structured laws, even if there were not written laws, that every merchant respected. And this was
That's
the way
crazy.
that trade was made with the North Africans,
Wow.
Amazigh of that time.
That's
This is
wild. Can
what
you
our
imagine that
history.
today? That would never
wild.
happen.
Yeah, that's wild.
Of course, that's true, man. He's speaking nothing but facts right now, man. And the thing is, in history, they're going to teach you that all in Africa, there were just tribes fighting every day. That's the farthest from true. They were well established, and they did open trade.
This is why, because at that time, the difference is at that time we were controlling our resources.
Mm-hmm.
We were controlling we were manufacturing things. Leather was a major product of Africans back then. These Hausa people that we are talking about, they are major producer of leather.
We don't
That
need
was
we never
commerce all the way to North Africa and used even in Europe
Yeah.
during
Yeah.
medieval
Even
age.
today. Yeah. Even today, though.
And
Yeah.
even today, you have
Nigerian
industry
leather.
of leather.
Yeah. Huh?
Yes, you have. I made a post about that, and by the way, yes, it is real. It is still, it's still there today.
Wow.
And also,
tragedy in which
we were a major producers of iron.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah.
basically were the first people to smelt iron,
Right.
because we began around 2300 BC
Mm-hmm.
to smelt iron in where it is now southeastern Nigeria,
Yep. The Nok
for
people,
example.
right?
And also
How do you pronounce
Meroe.
it?
he just said it. He said it. He said it when he started talking. What
Oh,
is it?
Nok people, right?
He said that.
Yes, no, we are talking, yes, no people, but in this was even before the Nok culture began. The site was called Leja.
Ledger. So
It
that's
was
what.
Leja,
So
which
that's
is
what
in
the word.
Nigeria,
That's where the word
and
ledger.
the other one was Obui in Central African Republic. They are about 2300 BC. So we're talking about the time of, there were ancient Egypt, there was Babylon, there was these empires in the Middle East area and North Africa. And we were already starting Iron Age there, when all this population, they didn't know what iron is yet.
Right.
They were still relying on bronze, on copper, for example. This is what we were doing. And Meroe, which was an iron producing center in what is now today Sudan, which we were talking about Nubia, basically. They were called the Birmingham of Africa at that time, because they were producing high volumes of iron and exporting through the Red Sea, the Nile, the Indian Ocean, to the rest of the old continent, to the Eurasia also. Because we were controlling our resources back then. So this is where we were powerful and able to resist. But when our economy was disrupted by the influence of the Westerners, and we lost control over our economies and our resources, this is where the situation of Africa all derailed, and we are in the situation that we are now.
I ask you a question right there. How did that happen? That part right there. How did they lose control of the finance?
Man, brother. Okay, this is how it happened.
I'm
Because
moving
we
on.
were
Listen,
divided
y'all
back
keep
then. So
teaching this man
one
over and
against
over.
the other, that we were not.
He ain't
When
listening.
in the contrast, the Europeans were uniting themselves and with purpose.
I dropped him, man. He ain't listening. He keep asking how.
That's what I asked him. I'm like, are you on code with us? Like, why do you keep challenging us on everything we're telling?
Yeah, doing too much, man.
Yeah, it's
Sorry, no, I was just telling back. So go ahead, go. If I didn't want to stop nobody.
No, go ahead, brother. You're teaching.
Yeah, you teaching, bro. Hey, man. Big up the African, man. He
Okay.
up here teaching, man. I'm learning. You know, I love our history too. You know what I'm saying? And you teaching me new things, because the more you know as a Pan-African, the more you learn, the more you need to learn. Like, the more you know, you need to learn. Like, I know I don't know everything, because every time I learn something new, I'm like, damn, I didn't even know about all that.
Right.
Like,
Remember, that's why I always say the more you know, the more you know you don't know.
right, yeah.
So I think one of the main issues in Africa that we have today is that different Africans tend to want to see themselves as single entities. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
I think a one big step that we could do is a universal African currency system. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Eliminating the European, the franc, and all the other ones that have been implemented. I think that would be a big step.
Well, Kwame
Yes, because
Nkrumah
this is
talked about that because he said the United States of Africa, and he was one of the
because the
main ones
unity
they
is
got rid
our
of. Hmm?
yes. Because also if we imagine all our individual currencies, even leaving for a moment this CFA franc of the French colonies, even the other countries, the Nigerian naira, of the Ghanaian cedi, the Kenyan shilling, individually, they're weak coins, they're currencies. Sorry, they're weak currencies, and so when it is confronted with the global manipulations of prices and so on, they have no power. But imagine one single currency for all Africa, backed by all of African resources. And they mean not only gold, but even resources that are pivotal now, like coltan or lithium or
Every single resource. We have it
cobalt.
all, man.
Exactly. Imagine
And it's
all these
getting a
resources
central bank. That's
backing
it.
our currencies. We should have
Exactly.
real financial power, not this power based on these abstract concepts like it is the dollar or the Western currencies that are now. They are all rushing to take our gold just to try to back a little more their currencies. And this
Right.
is
And
what
what if
happens.
we
So
decided on something, on a resource to be valuable? Who decided? I heard a sister say this and it was brilliant. Who decided that some rocks in Africa that are diamonds, who decided to put the value on that? Who said that? Who decided that? That's what we got to
exactly,
do. We got to
one
quit
thing
thinking in
is
terms of them, and come up with some things that we deem to be valuable and base our money on that. Not only just gold and diamonds, but something else that we have complete and total control of that they need. And then that's when we can make that item valuable.
Yep.
That's how you got to think.
So let me ask another question to all the brothers and sisters out here. Just since we're having a really intellectual conversation, what do you think about maybe because the Chinese are probably one of the biggest problem we have in Africa. You know what I'm saying? Because what they're doing is they're putting many African nations in a chokehold. You know what I'm saying? Because African countries will go to China and say, loans, or, you know what I'm saying? Knowing that they can't give it back in time, they say, for now, since you can't pay it back, you're going to pay it back with interest, and you have to give our partners, certain discounts on resources, which is a manipulation tactic that's used to extort Africa as well.
I think that the Chinese the situation is that okay, there is maybe too much enthusiasm for Chinese partnership in Africa and even Russian partnership in Africa, but I think that this is more what you described is more actual with what happened with the aid that comes from Western countries, and in particular with loans that are given by the IMF and by the World Bank, because they are the ones that are giving loans with interests and with attachments about how you should run your economy. That you have to privatize, you have to remove that subsidy for the benefit of the people, and just favor the interests of the multinational companies and pay the debt back without caring of really developing the country, of supporting your people.
Not just
While
that.
the interest with the deals with the Chinese are more beneficial in the sense that they are more like the Chinese, of course, they are in Africa for the same thing, resources, of course. But what they do is more like okay, I need these resources and I need it at cheapest as possible. So in exchange for me for extracting these resources for cheap for this period of time, what do you need? And the African country maybe can just reply with, I need, I don't know, this infrastructure, this road, this railroad, this port, this airport, this stadium, I don't know, this refinery, maybe something like that. And they at least are developing their country because they are not supposed then for asking this loan to run the economy in a certain way.
But
So if you make a deal, you are giving
workers though.
Chinese some resources for cheap.
Right.
This is real. But in
And it
exchange, you
use
are
them,
having an infrastructure or something.
right, use them for what they're worth. And then like Ibrahim Traore is saying, you can come in here, we can develop a relationship, but you're never gonna colonize us, you're never gonna run nothing. You know what I mean? We can exchange and do things. And it's, I mean, we live in this world. That's what you have to do. But it can be done more on the terms that we said. And see, that's where I see where we as Black people in the United States can come in. Because look how much money we get rid of F off on stupid stuff that we could be channeling our resources and putting our money in some banks there to help grow the economy and grow, and where you can have some of the monies to buy the resources that you need, and we do a fair trade and go from there. That's how United people here, how we can help. We got to figure that out.
One of the key problems is that if it was on a let's say it's just money dealing, it's the Chinese bring in their own workers, meaning that the money that's being pumped into the economy isn't being refreshed through the citizens. It should be the citizens that are building the schools, the infrastructure, and roads. It's a disgrace that you have Chinese people in China building schools and roads.
I agree in the sense that it depends, I think, on the country, African country itself that makes the deal, how long-sighted you are. I mean, of course, if what you need is to put yourself in a position where you are able to do all these things that you are asking assistance for by yourself in the future. So knowing how to generate revenue to finance the project, how to improve or transfer the skills into your working class
Right.
in order that they will be able to run the infrastructure or the project or whatever by ourselves without foreign assistance tomorrow,
Exactly.
in order to
Owning our
generate
own.
more revenue for to pumping into the economy even more and developing the country even further and further and further.
It would.
This
It
is the
builds on
process that should
itself.
be made.
The
But one
means of
example that I want to
production.
make about the partnerships is also the military one. We have the example in the Sahel when these countries, in Mali in particular, has a long history of French military partnership, which went on with the Operation Serval, which was of 2015, if memory doesn't fail me, but something like that. And these Islamist rebel groups that were controlling the northern part of the country, they took over the control of half of the country back then. Even with the presence of French military, which imagine this thing, the French military, which has access to satellite images and so on, even deny the access to the Mali army in some areas of its own countries. They were denied access by the French military. So imagine what kind of partnership it was. And these rebels had their stronghold in a city called Kidal in Mali, northern Mali, which held on by some 7 years out of the control of the Mali army, even with French assistance, nothing. Then when the coups went on and the military took power, and they decided to kick the French military out, and then get a partnership with the Russians. In a matter of months, compare 7 years of partnership with the French at a stronghold in Kidal held out. Just few months with Russian assistance, and the Mali army was able to take over Kidal from these separatists. Few months with assistance of the Wagner group of the Russians. So imagine the partnership that the partnership basically was there as a mean to have an excuse to build bases there and be there in the territory. So they needed destabilization. There are proofs, and the reason why they kicked out the French is because they found proofs that the French were financing these rebel terrorist Islamist groups for destabilizing the region. This is what happens with Western military partnership. And when you get another one, of course, the Russians were interested in resources too, and also in getting influence at the expense of the West, because they are in an open war with the West now. Okay, so this is okay. They have their own interests, but they at least offer something that is beneficial. So effective partners as a military partnership. So this is the reason between more African countries, the ones that are really revolutionizing and really gaining real independence, like Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger. This is the reason that they are turning towards partnership with the Russians or the Chinese or even North Koreans or the Iran. This is the reason.
Yeah.
And also, remember that in Mali, in Burkina Faso, sorry, in particular, Ibrahim Traoré was waiting for some weapon systems that are more advanced than what we are usually allowed to, because when we are not even denied access to some high technology level of armaments. And the Burkina Faso asked for a shipment of these kind of weapons, and they have been denied, for example. They are fighting terrorist groups that bringing Sharia to half of the country. They are fighting this, and the West is not backing the Burkina Faso or the Mali or the Niger army. They are actually backing these terrorists. So imagine how weak they are. I made my case, sorry.
No, you're preaching, man, because there should be the amount of terrorism that's happening in that area is actually unbelievable. Many people don't understand how much terrorism is going on in that area and how
Guys,
much.
just a heads up. Avoid using the T word. Just maybe say errorism or something. Just
Sorry, I
like
forgot.
no, it's all good, family. It's just 100% agree with you. 100% agree. But yeah, it's just TikTok is heavy on the words, so just gotta watch out.
So this is also a reason why we are keeping, in my opinion, they are denying the access to African military to some weapon systems, precisely because it is easier to destabilize the region, because just with few weapons provided to some separatist militias or something like that, or terrorists or something like that, they are able to destabilize an entire region. So just imagine what happens in Sudan. These RDF paramilitary, they're just slightly better supplied weapons than the Sudanese military. They took over half of the country. The same with the M23 in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
I was just about to say
And the
that.
same with these terrorists in the Sahel.
That's right, bro.
Just few weapons supplied, and they can destabilize the whole region. This is why I deny access to some weapon systems. And this is why I back Traoré, that is gaining S-400 anti-missile systems, is operating with Akinji drones from Turkey. This is the kind of improvement that we have to do.
You know, African. That's a very similar case to in Liberia. When when the civil war was going on, how the countries that were clearly being destabilized, people they came in there and took diamonds and took a lot of resources and sold them off on the black market.
Exactly. This is the same thing. The back then was happening in Liberia and in Sierra Leone also. And it's the same that is happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo now.
Sudan for sure.
And it's exactly the same process because it is all this destabilization thing. It's all resources acquired through smuggling. So no taxes paid to no state entity and no control over nothing empowered by any state because there is no state control at all.
So can I ask a
This is
question?
the best reason for them to operate is a scenario like that of Liberia, Sierra Leone back then and of the DRC now.
Yeah. Can I ask a question to the African American counterparts? What do y'all feel like we need to do to work together, you know, within the outside diaspora and Africa?
I mean, like, first and foremost, we need to educate our people outside of the miseducation. Like, that's got to be a critical component because you can't even get people to the level of consciousness necessary to unify as Black African people when we got these weird, ridiculous panels talking about how they're indigenous to the Americas and they want nothing to do with certain spaces, which technically speaking, it's a very small amount of Black people that actually believe that nonsense. But what I'm seeing is that they are heavily pushing that narrative again and again and again, and it plays directly into the hands of the self-hatred that racism, white supremacy has forcibly imposed into us as African people for the purpose of keeping us divided. They want us to think that we're everything else and that we need to unify with everything else other than with being Black, being African, and directly going against racism, white supremacy. So it's that has to be a part of the process too. It's a critical part of the process. Reading has to be fundamental as well. There's the author of the 1619 Project. She wrote that, or at least she spoke that reading radicalizes you, and knowledge and education radicalizes you. So it gets you to that level of consciousness at a faster pace than the whole like, okay, well, I'm just going to look at TV all the time, or I'm just going to look at the advertisements and the propaganda. But that has to be a fundamental component. But those who are already on that time, we have to develop organizations. We have to unify in spaces. One of the spaces that we can unify, be1initiative.org, literally a space of over 900 Pan-Africanists where we can all come together, have these conversations. There's a lot of our other African family that have spaces as well, but this is one of them. It's a nonprofit organization. We're also working on Sankofapedia. All of this is like the brainchild of Brother Legend, so big shout out to Brother Legend for that. But myself, Sister Stella, Sister Yvette, Brother Legend, we're chiefs over there. Having that space to be able to unify, organize, have those conversations is critical, because if we're already on about that time, and for those that are already on that time and that know unapologetically who they are, join us there. Like that's the first couple of steps that we need to take. Having space to be able to have the conversations, educating ourselves out of the miseducation. And once we start doing that in full accord, like we're living in the age of information. So there's a lot of people that are waking up, which is great. But unfortunately, we're not going to be able to save everybody. There's just some people that are so hopelessly dependent on the system of racism, white supremacy, that they will themselves, even though they are not benefiting from it, fight to protect it. It's unfortunate. It's the reality, though. Hence the reason why Harriet Tubman carrying around a pew pew. But we got to be on code, full force, and have a very clear set of principles as to how we're going to move, how we're going to follow, what we're going to follow, how we're going to operate. Otherwise, everybody's going to be, I'm going to do my own thing. And then we're all going to do our own thing right into like the concentration camps. Like that's where they're headed for us, y'all. Like, they do not want to give us any form of freedom, any form of liberation, any form of power that directly goes against the construct of racism, white supremacy. And they will defend that even at the expense of destroying part of themselves. That is how dedicated they are to that. And they are very intelligent, again, very sophisticated, and they pride themselves on being able to manipulate us into doing their bidding. We have to become very intelligent and very sophisticated ourselves on being able to counter all of that. But I think we can do it. We absolutely dominated the entire planet at one point in time. There's no such thing as civilization if it wasn't for us. We have the mental capacity, we have the intelligence, we have the dominance, we have the biological capabilities. We are on a level that is above and beyond. All we got to do is just get right back to that consciousness that we were at, and studying the history, studying the scholars is the way in which we can get that first foundational principle set. So, yeah.
That's a fact. Smarter sister, give us your thoughts on this. Sister, you there?
She would agree with what Timothy just said, and she like Timothy just said, she's one of the chiefs in our Discord. What up, smart sister?
Hey, can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we hear you, Auntie.
Yeah, because I was heated a little while ago. But anyway, I told you I'm gonna be an alcoholic, nephew listening. I had to get a cocktail. But no, what I was gonna say is, okay, we know their game plan, right? Nothing new under the sun. Our scholars have left us plans to follow, and that's what we got to do. A lot of the work, the heavy lifting, has already been done. All we got to do is decide that we're going to be on code, and those of us that are on code making moves we got to make. Because you're right, we are not going to be able to reach everybody. You know, you got it. Some folks just got to go. They just got to go. And move out the way. Like I say, think, reflect, get up and do. Either you gonna make it happen or you not, or we'll still be on TikTok in 2050 saying this same stuff. Okay, we know what they're gonna do. We know how they move. We know, like I said, we gotta go stealth on them. And even with the brothers and sisters in the continent, they gotta learn they black too. They gotta know that they with us. We all the same. We gotta stop all this fighting. But those of us that know better and can do better, I think we need to get key African economists and black economists together, because you know they unalived Malcolm 2 weeks after he had met with African leaders like Lumumba. Okay? So we know what they're going to do. But so what? We got to be open and out in the open. Because, see, that's just it. They like everything in the dark, in the corner, in the back. We can have a national conference of economic blah, blah, blah. Have folks from the United States, have them from Africa. See, they can't do it right there when everybody looking. See, that's the thing we got in our advantage at this point. We could live stream it. We could, C-SPAN it however you want to go, but yet still do what we gotta do. Cause when we coming for them, they know we know their games, and half of us are too punks, too much of a punk and a coward to sit up here and do what we need to do. Oh, we can't let them know what we doing. They might kill. They got a satellite right now can tell you what color drawers you put on this morning. I say that all the time. So if you think you got some secret shit somewhere, you ain't developed no underwater, have a meeting, can't broadcast it shit. We we can't worry about that. But what we can do, think about it. The more you open in the open, Noriega, that drug pen that United States used to get what they wanted, and then they wanted to unalive him, he ran out in the public in the streets. They had to take him off the streets that way. He got public like a mug, so they couldn't take him out. That's what we got to do. You got to know they always want to seem like they're the good guy, and they're always on if we know they're going to come for us, deal with it that way. Because they can't afford to appear
that they're doing anything wrong. Oh my God, no. So like Neely Fuller said, if they want to control both sides of the argument, we got to get some arguments that we start that they can't control. And that's all it is. Use the brilliance that we have to think through this stuff and figure it out and know what the next move is. We can play chess too and get our scholars work and our people that are brilliant in what they do and connect them with our brothers and sisters. To me, as far as Ibrahim Traore in Mali and Niger or whatever, your financial people could be meeting with some of ours, and we could connect and make sure we ensure the stability of your bank, because the Lord knows we got enough money over here among us to do it. Even if we haven't done it for ourselves yet, we could help the brothers and sisters there get it done, and move from there. Because that's all YT people understand is money and unalivement. And you got to let them know you willing to unalive as quick as they are. Okay? And I don't care all this shit with, well, we can't use, blah, blah. What? How have they got any damn thing they got? They don't send Bibles to these meetings, okay? We know what they do. So you gotta not quit being a punk and do what you gotta do. It's as simple as that. It's not that hard. Everybody else does it. Damn.
Like I think we all gotta get very, very on code with understanding that, like, listen, even when we're studying their like biology, when we're studying their history, like the things that they have done, we're studying their genetic capabilities or lack thereof, more on the lack. Like, we need to be very clear. They have been genetically mutated. They have been, I would say, their gene structure has genetically mutated to have less empathy. So, like, that's the reality, y'all. People want to do this whole "we are the world and we're all the same." No.
We're
We
not.
literally have different dietary requirements as Black African people than they do. Like, that's the reality of it, y'all.
African. I was thinking like, I feel like many of Africa's missing a lot of scholars and doctors because they all go abroad and go work with them. I'm saying, and I think one key thing specifically that we could even work with the African diaspora is getting all those people back to Africa. You know what I'm saying? And because there's countries in Africa where people have been in power for 10 years, 20 years, 15 years, and nothing has changed. There's no progress at all,
Yes, because we are not changing the what has to be changed. Because as long as we continue to use the current economic structure and all the processes, the ideas, and the dynamics that are emboldened with it, we will never see change. And it's structurally impossible to change as long as we do not change or we do not challenge this aspect in particular. And I think that, yes, the point is that we Africans are still do not have realized that is the point that has to be challenged, and that we have to do it as a united force, as a united entity. This is what the reason that we are not changing and that the situation is continuing to be perpetuated in this way. And we are going in this cycle where it's not only just Africa, but it's any African population around the world. So included us in the different diasporas around the world.
Right. But we got to get on code. Stay with around some of the white T folks. So what? Be a spy. We don't even get that concept. They stay up on us because there's always somebody around telling them what we doing. Well, we need to have some folks around to tell us what they doing. Okay? Real simple.
Yeah,
but they don't never know what we got on our mind and what we gonna do. That element of surprise is a thing that we have in our corner. They don't think we think that way, or they don't come up with a different paradigm and a different way of doing stuff and getting it to be effective for our own folks. That's what you got to do. And the main thing they're also afraid of is spirituality. I always just look to Haiti. Who was the only black country that beat them? Okay? What did Haitians do? Let's go back and take a few pages out of their book. Now, even though they ended up getting caught up by the French, still they got beaten. And what did they do? They had a spiritual component, and then they was willing to mow down anybody that was in their way. No, no stops, no nothing. That's how they got it done.
Yo, I was gonna say, I think one problem specifically I'll say for our African brethren is that there are some who do go overseas and they completely forget who they are. You know what I'm saying?
Well, we can't talk.
Huh?
I said we can't not talk. Look, yo, VP right now is running game, doing the same thing. We can't sit up here and tell our people in Africa what they doing wrong. Why didn't you do it? No, look in your own damn backyard. What the hell have we been doing?
Oh,
That's what I'm saying. All of us got intergenerational trauma. All of us need to clear that up and defy the lie of YT inferiority. That's the problem. No. I can't get with, because they going through and doing the same damn thing we're doing right here. Seriously?
no, I was more because I'm African myself, and many of the immigrants who do come over here, unfortunately, they will tell you that they're never going back, and that's a mindset that we need to get rid of, because the children are the future, you know what I'm saying? And that's the first step, it's the children. It's changing the mindset of the children.
Right. That's true. And that's their right if they want to do it. But like I said, if you got intergenerational trauma and you get caught up, whoever you are, wherever you coming from, it's the same thing. With some of us right here, we indoctrinated. So you're right, it is the children. We got to teach them a whole nother mindset, because that's the problem. We still think in dichotomies like white folks, YT folks rather. We got to undo what they've done to our thinking over here, and then maybe we can pull together and get some stuff done and figure some stuff out and move forward. That's it, because we already know what they're doing and how they're doing it. So what we gonna do? For real. Ooh, I might lose my job. I can't go on vacation next year because I ain't got no money to be sending to no Africa. You know how we do. Thank you. Ain't nothing they do calm and easy and whatever. Like I said, when they go to take a country, they don't send their soldiers with Bibles. They might send some missionaries to mess some people head up with a Bible. But I'm just saying, when they send in their military, they send in their military. And the thing about it, we 30% of the military here in the United States. 14% of the population, 30% of the armed services. Ain't that messed up? And we make 25% of the people in jail. Huh? Go ahead. Ooh, yes, that's right. I say, thank you.
as the other three, which are Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, are doing by forming this AES confederation. And so Guinea is a particular state because it was also suspended by the ECOWAS, which is the regional bloc of the West African states, which is basically a pro-West regional structure, regional tool for control. And uh, so Guinea is this particular state, but I think that as it has not sided completely as with the AES, it means that it is still under control of the West, basically, as it is also Senegal, where this young president Faye, when it won elections, we were all happy, celebrating a new Pan-Africanist. But by the action that he is doing, so basically to trying to reconcile the AES country with the ECOWAS, are still in the interests of the West and of the French. Still, he's not demanding something like the military, French military, to leave the country, as its population had asked him and had fought and had lost its life in trying to support his rising to presidency. So it is always difficult. Believe me, I have the habit of trying to participate in many lives here in TikTok, and many of them are old and are prominently African made. And when you speak with these issues in Africa with Africans, uh, it's
So
it is
toxic.
it
Oh
has
my
always another layer of difficulty in trying to explain these things, because there are this tribalism issue, this religious issue, and this misunderstanding of how this imperialist supremacy system works.
Brother Legend posted a video the other day on what happened in South Africa, you know, and the amount of South African who came into defense of this YT woman was out of control. You know what I'm saying?
You're
Here,
talking about the Miss South Africa thing?
yeah.
Okay.
I think it's so different. How you see how we can talk to our African American counterparts when it comes to black space, African spaces. It seems like they're not even really willing to come on the. There's obviously some who are willing, to talk, but majorities of brothers is so anti-black, that it's gonna take a lot of deconstruction.
Yes, it is something that I really, one side of me really doesn't understand, but one side understand perfectly what is going on. Let me explain. For example, in South Africa, I see there is a lot of animosity against the other African coming there as economic immigrants to South Africa, and they are accused of not respecting the laws of South Africa, in participating in illegal activities, in being not documented, and so on, and in stealing the jobs of South Africans. This is another big issue. The main issue actually is that while what they should understand is that first of all is that migration is functional with the economic system itself because it is capital based. So it is oriented towards the interest of the multinationals or the business owners, not of the workers. So in their interests, having a workforce, a work base, which is more desperate than the average Black South African, so able to accept even lower wages, it's a money generator for them. So this is the reason why there is migration in not just in South Africa, but why there is migration in Europe or why there is migration in the United States. It's exactly that the reason. It's functional to the continuation of this money generation process through exploitation of, in this case, human desperation, basically. So this is what is going to happen. But the people in South Africa do not understand that this is the reason, and furthermore, they engage in this war of poor against other poors, instead of all poors united against the rich, in this case, people, which are the ones who are profiting from this situation, which are the white minority of South Africa, which is something like 10% of the population, but owns 80% of the land and 80% of South African economy. But they do not challenge this. They challenge each other by poor Black South Africans against poor Black African immigrants there. This is something that they do not understand.
It's so crazy how much animosity that they have towards the other Black counterparts. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, because it is something that they feel hand to hand. Because the problem with immigration is that it affects the poorest people of the receiving country. It is the same also here in Italy. It is the same. There's a lot of animosity, of course, against us, the immigrants here, because we are accused of what? Stealing jobs and for criminality or something like that. And when you look at actual statistics, for example, here in Italy, the crime rate is declining steadily since the last 30 years, which is precisely the period when immigrants started to come in this country. But here, immigrants are accused of making the country more violent, but it's not correlated with statistics. The same is in South Africa. South Africans accuse the Nigerians in particular, or the Zimbabweans, to be violent criminals. But South Africa, by its own, used to have one of the highest murder rates in the world.
And slums too.
South Africa, far more than what Nigeria has at its own. Also, or even some conflict-zone countries. Or even Nigeria has some security problems with terrorists in the north, but they are not the crime rate of South Africa. But Nigerians are accused of them. This is because the poor people are the ones receiving the immigrants, interacting with them in the streets and having conflicts with them. And this is why they feel this so affected, why they fail to understand that the reason of all that is the challenge that comes from up against the down class, the lower class. This is what happens. And this affected also this situation where it is so rooted, where they do not accept a Miss South African which has a Nigerian father. Nigeria, which is a country that didn't never harm the people of South Africa as a country, but they accept a South African which has her whole ancestry, basically, which comes from a country, from a people who came there in South Africa with no fair intentions, but with the clear purpose, and acted upon this purpose to subjugate and exploit the South Africans. So a people who historically harmed and caused all the harms that South Africans are experiencing now. This is what happens. So this is something that drives me crazy too. I really can't stand with it, but it is not on the only one. There are many, many of these kind of scenarios that are around in Africa that are still issues that have to be solved.
Literally everywhere.
Yes, and unfortunately, we that are getting this Pan-African mindset are still a tiny minority, and this is the reason that I try to spread more awareness as possible.
Thank you so much, African. I'll definitely follow you, brother. You know, I'll definitely email you. I have to get going.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you
Good
so much,
night.
brother Legend.
Good night. Come back soon.
Take it easy, family. Have a good night.
I have to get going too. But brother Legend, I was gonna ask, like, were South Africans attacking you too when you posted that a lot? When you posted that, are you there, brother Legend?
He might have stepped away, family. But
I'm sure
he'll be
they
back soon.
did. You got Coonesians all over the world.
Yes, small sister. You know, it's actually bad. Small sister. It's because like you see how me, you, and African can have a dialogue. You know what I'm saying? When you get on a panel with other brothers in Africa, you will see the true anti-blackness come out. You feel me?
No, but us here too. You know, we can't. Some of us can't get together for nothing. It's just gotta be contrary,
Are you?
just to be contrary. But you know, I don't worry about them people because you in the matrix, so you stay hooked up in the matrix, and the rest of us gonna come on out and do what we gotta do. That's why I don't even trip on them. Because they stuck and it's nothing you can do. The time you wasted on them, you could be out doing some revolutionary stuff. That's the way I look at it. Because they can come and understand and try to grow if they want to. If they don't, let them swim in the milk. Let them do whatever they got to do. What can you do? So did somebody new just come up?
Yeah, just
Yes,
yeah,
Corvo, can you give us your age, race, and pronouns, please?
yes. Age 34, race black, foundational, and pronouns are he, him.
Okay, what's your thoughts?
Well, I kind of just came. I kind of just got here, so I wasn't quite sure what the conversation was. But judging by what I'm seeing on this list, it just seems people are very bothered with that very concept of being black first.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so bothersome to. And the funny thing is, and I'm pretty sure I'm not giving a perspective that hasn't already been discussed in some form of fashion before I got here, but when you realize that our grievance with this country, and either directly or indirectly with the entire world, we have the most legitimate grievance, that it it allows other people's grievances to be propelled by them latching themselves onto us. And it's not to say that other forms of oppression should not be addressed, but it does go to show how it does go to show how addressing the issues of women doesn't disrupt the status quo as much. Addressing the issues of LGBT doesn't change the status as much. So to say that you're black first and to address our issues to the fullest extent, tangibly address them and grant that tangible justice that is deserved, that would cause, it's like they'll use other causes just to dance around our grievances.
Are they scared of being black?
Carvel, if you don't mind me asking, do you feel like all black people, including first Africans, do you feel like we should all be in one line and one code to fight the bigger powers?
Yes, we should be, but we aren't. We should be. Because regardless of nationality, at the anti-blackness is the foundation of palm color supremacy. Like it almost like it primarily. And if you're a crest theorist like me, someone who follows the work of Dr. Welsing, it would stand to reason that, of course, those of us who have the greatest potential to cause them their genetic annihilation is going to catch the most hell out of all people classified as non-white, i.e. us, black, African, regardless of nationality. Everything, the standard for basically the very standard for any form of racial, for lack of better terms, for any the standard for trying to climb up in the racial hierarchy is to hold a position of anti-blackness, because you don't have to be because you don't have to be Black American to be the emotional punching bag in England for when their sports team loses, as if
That is a
the
big
black
fact.
people, regardless of the fact that the black citizens in England have nothing to do with your piss poor sports team, but for some reason they the ones that gotta get they the ones that gotta catch it. You don't have to be Black American to be targeted or even discriminated against, or even told you cannot even come into stores in your own country, because the continental Africans can attest to that you don't have to be Black American to be antagonized by the Chinese. So the standard for achieving or bettering yourself in the racial hierarchy, it comes down to, at the base of it, is anti-blackness. That is the standard. That is pretty much the bare minimum. So we should be on one accord with each other. That would be logical.
Brother Timothy, do you see all those riots and protesting that are going on in the UK?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry, guys. I'm at a restaurant with family at the moment, but I'm definitely listening in. So if you hear Rihanna and all types of noise in the background, my bad. But yeah, no, I see it. I see it happening. A lot of these so-called people that we keep on trying to assimilate with, that we keep on trying to gain allyship with, very much so have zero to want to do with unification of people, like how they pretend to be. So at the end of the day, they're YT, and they're going to defend racism, YT supremacy by any means necessary, which includes harming innocent men, women, and children that are not. So, I mean, that's like, what do we expect? They're YT people. They're defending racism, YT supremacy. They're gonna keep doing this. It's gonna get worse. The more that they lose their power, the more that we're going to see them enact extreme forms of violence in order to try to maintain their power. So that's the reality. That's what we have to be very, very understanding of. That's what we have to expect wholeheartedly. That's the reality of the situation. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. There is no holding their hand and maybe we can wish away the hate. It's going to still remain until the entirety of their constructs are fully and utterly destroyed and turned to dust. They are still going to do whatever they need to do to maintain the construct of racism, white supremacy. We just got to get on code and understanding that and doing whatever we got to do to destroy it. They're not going to get rid of it themselves. They're not. Benefit too much from it. What would they get? There's no incentive for them to get rid of it. No incentive at all. Every incentive for us, zero incentive. It takes something else, being gain a conscience, developed a thousands of years worth of lacking in empathy. So, reality.
And that's another thing as well. Like to Timothy's point about praying away the hate. Another reason that is completely naive thinking at best is that palm color supremacy really doesn't even have anything to do with love or hate. Their survival just depends on it. So it doesn't really matter how they feel about you collectively or as an individual. Their survival just depends on what they're doing. So for anyone wondering, yes, a white person can be quote unquote in love with you and still practice racism against you. That is possible because it's not even relevant to feelings.
You know, the thing is that in the past, when we have came together as a people to work towards the greater good, the outcome has been like more than, you know what I'm saying? If we could just, the first step is just unity. If we could just unite, I think that's the first big step, and that's probably going to be the biggest hurdle. Did y'all hear me, by the way?
Not quite.
No, I was saying I feel like the biggest hurdle is unity. And once we get over that hurdle, I think the things that we as a people are going to be able to accomplish is unlimited.
Gotcha.
All right, y'all. We got a Olympian want to come up, I believe. Oh, no, they ran, thank God. Still blocked him. All right, y'all. I gotta go. It's date night. I didn't even know it was date night, but my wife had plans for us tonight, so I'm gonna go ahead and unify with my woman. I hope everybody has a great night. I'll be back tomorrow a little bit early, and we're gonna dive deeper into some new topics. And yeah. In the meantime, Black Laws for Black Liberation for all Black people. My name is Brother Legend. I'm here to raise your consciousness. I'm going to check y'all tomorrow.